Hello and welcome to 14.2 Designing Exercise Programs. This is client 2 of a 6-week program. First, I made some client consultations. These were to understand a little bit more about my client. Then a PAR-Q. This was to understand about my client's health and well-being. And then we made some client targets. These are the targets set for my client throughout the 6 weeks. One is a short-term target within 3 weeks. This was to build muscle mass across all muscles in the body and have a more defined and physical shape. And then there was the long-term target, which was 6 weeks long. This was to strengthen muscles across the body. Week 1, Monday. Monday is a test day. To begin with, I'll test my client so we both have an understanding of his muscle mass and strength. We can then use these results to see how he makes progress, and we can look back on it throughout the week, but especially at the end of the 6 weeks when we finish the program. Tuesday, warm-up. Start with some static stretches, shoulder width apart. Reach as far down to your feet as possible. Do this around 3 times and hold it for 10 seconds. Then put your hands on your hips, rotate your hips in a circular motion. Do this for around 40 seconds. And then begin some jumping jacks. This increases the heart rate, so the muscles can be warmer for exercise. Do this for around 1.5 minutes. Once the pulse raiser and static stretches are done, move on to some dynamic stretches before beginning your session. Start with some hamstring curls, do 5 reps with 2 sets, and finish with some groin stretches, such as opening and closing the gate. Make sure that these stretches are held for around 10 seconds if they're static, and if they're dynamic, then there should be 3 seconds held with a jog in between, and then another 3 seconds until you reach around 15 seconds. The activity is a gym session. First, we'll be looking at the legs and abdominals. This is going to be improved through a leg press, which is going to be 4 sets of 10 reps at 75 kg. Then we're going to move on to some split squats. These squats will be 3 sets of 10 reps at around 20 kg. And then a barbell deadlift, which is 4 sets of 10 reps at 50 kg, and then some sit-ups, 4 sets of 10 reps, and this is obviously a bodyweight activity. These exercises and the main activity here is about improving my client's muscle mass and strengthening the muscles that are not used as often as they could. We've already acknowledged that he has a good cardiovascular endurance. He runs to work every day. And so now we're really just focusing on building muscle mass and strengthening the muscles. Over the period of the 6 weeks, it's about these gym sessions where he will build the muscle, and we'll see progress beginning of the 3 weeks, and we can measure it then. To cool down, use the elliptical machine at a low intensity around level 4 for around 8 minutes. Then use some static stretches. Lay down on the floor with your arms extended to stretch the hip flexor. Hold this for around 15 seconds. Then put your palms up against the wall with one leg bent and the other extended to stretch the calf muscles. Hold these for around 15 seconds. Once the stretches are done, use the foam roller to stretch anything that is bothering you or that may feel tight. Wednesday is a rest day. My client works in London every day, and it's difficult for him to make it back in time so that I can help him in the gym. So this day is a rest day. I recommend that the rest days that I give him, he does not run to work. This will put the body under too much stress, having to do a gym day and then running to work the next day. It might be painful for him as well. It allows the body to recover so that the days in the gym are worthwhile and not damaging to the body. Thursday, the warm-up. Start with a light jog following the personal trainer, following me, And when I shout 1, the client will touch the floor with their right hand. When I shout 2, the client touches the floor with their left hand. And when I shout 3, the client changes in a different direction. We'll do this for around 2 minutes to warm up the body, and then we'll move on to some dynamic stretches. We'll start off with some lunges, do 3 sets of 5 lunges, and then some inchworms to do 2 sets of 4 worms. Then we are ready to begin the main activity. The activity on this day is going to be working out the shoulders and abdominals. To begin with, we'll do some lateral raises, 4 sets of 10 reps with a weight of 3 kg on each arm. And then some barbell head raises. We'll do 4 sets of 10 reps at 5 kg. Then some sit-ups, 4 sets of 10 reps, which is a bodyweight exercise. And then barbell rollouts, which is rolling out, stretching, and then strengthening the abdominals. We'll do 4 sets of 10 reps here. This workout here is specifically designed to strengthen and build muscle around the shoulders and abdominals, which is one of my client's targets, as he is a slim man, and so one of his targets was to build muscle mass, and this is where we'll be doing it. To cool down, use the stationary bike to reduce the heart rate back down to your resting heart rate. So make sure that we pedal slow. It's important that it's at a low intensity, so it's a cool down rather than a warm up. And then start some dynamic stretches. Do some split lunges. Do 3 sets with 5 reps, and then some high kicks across the body. Do 2 sets of 5 reps on both legs. Finish with the foam roller and the resistance bands to stretch out or roll out any sore muscles from the activity. Friday is a rest day. Because of the stressful job in London, getting back for gym sessions makes it even more stressful, so this day is a rest day. I suggest that he focuses on stretching any muscles that are sore, and also looking at his nutrition. This could be eating more foods that have protein in, as when exercising in the gym, there are micro tears which actually rebuilds the muscle to make them stronger and bigger, and protein speeds up this process as well. So looking at foods that have more protein in could be something that he could look at. Saturday, the warm-up, start with some static stretches. These could be stretching your hamstrings, so standing shoulder width apart, and reach down as far as you can and to your feet as possible with your hands, and hold this stretch for around 15 seconds to get maximum results. This will stretch your hamstring. Do this around 2 or 3 times, and you'll get the right result. Then hands on top of your hips. Rotate your hips in a circular motion and hold it to stretch the hip flexors at the back or at the front, and then at the back to stretch the hamstring muscles. This should be done for around a minute if you do it properly and hold the stretches. And then we can begin some jumping jacks or some split lunges. These increase heart rate. Do this for around a minute. And once the pulse raiser and static stretches are done, we should move on to some dynamic stretches before beginning the session. To begin with some groin stretches, this could be opening and closing the gate, or on your knee with one leg extended sideways and leaning into that and holding the stretch, or some hamstring curls. These are curls stretching the hamstring with a couple of steps in between, and then moving on to the other hamstring to hold that stretch. Do both of these stretches 5 times and 2 sets of these, so 10 stretches in all to finish. And the activity here is that I've enrolled my client into a badminton group. This session lasts an hour and a half and runs every other week. This session focuses on the technique of badminton shots and how to play the game, with fun activities and competitive games for all skill levels. This helps with his social skills and strengthens the core. This activity here is less about the targets that the client has set and more about the social side of things. My client has a stressful job and commutes a lot, so time for social time is limited. To cool down, use the elliptical machine at a low intensity around level 4 for 8 minutes. Then use some static stretches. Stand with your left leg on the ground and your right leg tucked behind you. Hold the leg at the ankle and pull to stretch the quadricep. Then you can lay down on the floor with your arms extended to stretch the hip flexor, and hold this for around 15 seconds. Both of those stretches there focus on the hip flexor. Then another stretch could be pushing against the wall, both hands pushed up against. One leg is stretched out and one leg is bent. This stretches the majority of the gastrocnemius and half of the hamstring. Hold this again for around 15 seconds, and once these stretches are done, use the foam roller and the resistance bands to stretch anything that may be bothering you. But after this activity, stretches and muscle soreness should not be such an issue as it is at a low intensity. Sunday is a rest day again for my client. Having too much exercise to begin with can tire the body out. And to begin with, this is only week 1, and so tedium can also have an effect. Too much exercise can cause boredom for the client, and therefore this will be a rest day. Again, the client can look at foods, nutrition-wise, foods that may help him to achieve his goals quicker, such as foods that contain protein. It's also important to have fluids on board, so lots of water. This improves concentration throughout the day. Week 2, Monday. The warm-up. Start with a light jog, following myself around the sports hall. When I shout 1, the client touches the floor with their right hand. When I shout 2, the client touches the floor with their left hand. When I shout 3, the client changes direction. We'll do this for around 2 minutes, and then we'll move on to some dynamic stretches. Start off with some lunges, some split lunges. We do 3 sets of 5 split lunges, and then some bear crawls. We'll do 2 sets of 4 crawls across around 10 meters. We'll then be ready and warmed up for the main activity. The main activity here is a gym session, training the legs and the abdominals. We'll begin with a barbell squat, 2 sets of those at 14 reps with a 7 kilogram weight. We'll then move on to a wider stance barbell squat, which is 2 sets of 14 reps and again at 7 kilograms. And then some leg curls, 4 sets of 12 reps at 7 kilograms. And then some seated calf raises, which are fairly easy at 5 sets and 14 reps. A leg and abdominal session was worked out in the previous week, and this week it is about improving the technique of the session and also about increasing the weight of the exercise. We're going to change up some of the exercises throughout the weeks so to help build muscle mass in all sorts of areas and strengthen muscles across the body. The cool down here, use a stationary bike to reduce the heart rate back down to your resting heart rate. Make sure to pedal at a low intensity so that it's a warm up. So it's not a warm up, but rather a cool down. And then start with some dynamic stretches. We'll do some standard normal lunges, do 3 sets with 5 reps, and then some high kicks across the body, the right leg going to the left hand and the left leg going to the right hand. Do 2 sets of 5 reps on both legs. Finish with the resistance bands to stretch the legs and the abdominals. One stretch we can do with the resistance bands is sat on the floor with the legs out. One end of the resistance band is around the top of the foot and the other end is in the client's hand, and we'll pull this to create tension and stretch down the gastrocnemius and hamstring. Tuesday is a rest day for my client. The job up in London is difficult for him getting back to do gym sessions, and the day before was a quite a strenuous task, and so today will be a rest day. I suggest that he takes on board at meal times increased amount of protein, as protein helps to build the muscle at a quicker rate. For example, he can eat lean meat, poultry and fish, and things like eggs as well. Wednesday, similar to yesterday, is also a rest day. The client should carry out some other nutritional meals, such as previously discussed. Seeds and nuts and dairy products such as milk, yogurt and cheese are also products that have high levels of protein, so that the muscles that have had micro tears in from training can be rebuilt bigger and stronger. Moving on to Thursday, the warm-up here, we will begin with some static stretches. The static stretches will be there to increase pliability in the muscles, so to help with the exercise. We'll begin with some hamstring curls. These will be just standing still and with our hamstring straightened and one leg bent, and we'll lean down and try to pull the tips of our toes forwards. This creates a stretch down the back of the hamstring and part of the gastrocnemius. We can then stretch out the hip flexor, standing on one leg and pulling the other leg behind. Make sure to hold the ankle and not the foot, as this doesn't get as much purpose on the quadricep, which is what we'll be stretching. Once we've done the static stretches, we'll move on to a pulse raiser. The pulse raiser will be the client stood in the middle of two cones, 5 meters apart from him in the middle. When I shout right, the client will run to the right cone, touch the right cone, and return back to the middle. When I shout left, the client will run to the left-hand cone, touch the cone, and run back to the middle. When I shout up, the client will jump up. When I shout down, the client will lay on their belly. This pulse raiser will be done for around 2 minutes, and this increases the heart rate, which in turn creates warmth in the muscles. We'll then finish the warm-up with some groin stretches. Stood still, we'll lean over to one side, bending the other and straightening the other. This creates a stretch down the groin. We'll then move on to the activity, which is another gym session training the chest and biceps. We'll begin with a dumbbell press, which is 4 sets of 14 reps at a 7 kilogram weight. And then a bench press, 4 sets of 14 reps at 20 kilograms. And then some tricep dips using the bench, 3 sets of 12 reps, and it's of course a bodyweight exercise. And then some tricep pull-ups, 3 sets of 14 reps at 10 kilograms. To cool down, use the elliptical machine at a very low intensity, around 3 or 4. Do this for around 8 minutes. Then move on to some static stretches. This could be a deep lunge with a rotation in it. This stretch stretches the groin area, the quadricep, and the hip flexor. Using the resistance bands to cool down, hold the resistance band underneath the feet, with the 2 palms lift upwards, and this creates a resistance in the quadricep and bicep. Also, using the foam roller here can be a great way to cool down and remove the lactic acid out of the muscles that may have built up throughout the activity. Moving on to Friday. Friday is a rest day. The client works in London every day, and it's difficult for him to make it home in time for him to go to the gym, and so this day is a rest day. I also recommend that on the rest days he does not run to work or work out his cardiovascular endurance at all. This allows the body to recover, so that the days in the gym are worthwhile and are not damaging to the body. Moving on to Saturday, the warm-up here is a light jog, following the personal trainer around the sports hall, and when ready, the cones should be laid out 5 meters apart from each other. There is a left-hand cone and a right-hand cone, and the client is in the middle. When I shout right, the client runs to the right-hand cone, touches it, and returns back to the middle. When I shout left, the client touches the left cone and returns back to middle. When I shout up, the client should jump up, and when I shout down, the client should lay down on their belly. This warm-up should last for around 2 to 3 minutes, and this is really just a good pulse raiser and can be quite fun and exciting for both the client and participant. Then we'll move on to some dynamic stretches. Start with some deep lunges. Do 3 sets of 5 lunges, and then move on to some inchworms. Do 2 sets of 4 inchworms. We'll then be ready to start the main activity. The main activity on Saturday is a gym session working on the back. To begin with, we'll have some wide lat pull downs. We'll have 2 sets of 18 reps at 7 kilograms. We'll then have some pull-ups, which are body weight exercises, 3 sets of 12 reps, and then we'll have a 1-arm dumbbell row, which is 3 sets of 14 reps with a 5 kilogram weight. To finish with, we'll have some wide lat pull downs. We'll do 3 sets of 20 reps, and this will be at 8 kilograms. To cool down, use the stationary bike to reduce the heart rate. This ensures that the blood is able to flush through the muscles that have just been worked out, and it returns the heart rate slowly back to its resting one. It's important that the pedal is done at a low intensity, so that it's a cool down rather than a warm up. And then we'll finish with some dynamic stretches. We'll have some split lunges. We'll do 3 sets with 5 reps, and then some high horsey kicks out from the body, not across the body, out from the body. We'll do 2 sets of 5 reps on both legs, and then we'll finish with the foam roller here. And this is really important to use the foam roller after a gym session, such as the back, as it can really push out the bits that the stretches might not be able to reach. Use the foam roller for around 10 minutes for maximum ability and purchase. Sunday is a rest day for my client. Sunday is a rest day for my client. The travelling to and from London to get back in time for gym sessions is quite stressful, and so therefore I recommend that on Sunday my client gets a long rest. Rest is really important for muscle growth and just general wear and tear on the body. Lots of rest, lots of fluids, and lots of nutrients, such as protein for the body and for the muscles. Sunday is a rest day. Week 3, Monday, the warm-up. We'll start off with some static stretches. Shoulder width apart, reach down as far as to your feet as possible. Do this 3 times and hold it for 10 seconds. Then hands on your hip, rotate your hips in a circular motion. Do this for around 40 seconds, stopping at the back to stretch the hamstrings and part of the gastrocnemius, and then stopping at the front for the hip flexors. Then begin some jumping jacks. This increases the heart rate. Do this for around 1.5 minutes. Once the pulse raiser and static stretches are done, move on to some dynamic stretches before beginning your session. Start with some hamstring curls, do 5 reps with 2 sets, and finish with some groin stretches. This could be opening and closing the gate. The activity on Monday is chest and triceps in a gym session. First, we'll begin with a dumbbell chest press, which is 3 sets of 10 reps using a 7 kilogram weight. Then some tricep dips, 3 sets of 12 reps using, obviously it's a body weight task. Then some tricep pulls, 3 sets of 10 reps at 10 kilograms. And then a bench press, 3 sets of 10 reps at 25 kg. To cool down, use the elliptical machine at a low intensity around level 4 for around 8 minutes. Then use some static stretches. Lay down on the floor with your arms extended to stretch the hip flexor. Hold this for around 15 seconds. Then put your palms up against the wall with one leg bent and the other extended to stretch the calf muscle and the hamstring. Hold this for 15 seconds. Once the stretches are done, use the foam roller to stretch anything that is bothering you. The foam roller is really important after a gym session, as the muscles will be put through strenuous tasks at a high intensity, and therefore the foam roller is useful for removing the DOMS that may occur after training. Tuesday is a rest day for my client. My client has a stressful job up in London, and getting back for the gym sessions makes it even more stressful. So this day is a rest day. I've suggested that on this day he focuses on stretching muscles that are sore. For example, after the bicep, gastrocnemius and abdominal session, he could stretch those muscles using resistance bands and a foam roller. Wednesday. The warm-up for Wednesday is a light jog following myself around the sports hall. When I shout 2, the client will touch the floor with their right hand. When I shout 1, the client will touch the floor with their left hand. When I shout 3, the client changes direction. We'll do this for around 2 minutes. Then we'll move on to some dynamic stretches. We'll start with some deep lunges with a rotation in the middle. We'll do 3 sets of 5 lunges. And then we'll move on to some bear crawls across 20 metres. We'll do 2 sets of 4 crawls. We'll then be ready for our activity. The activity on Wednesday is walking football. I've joined my client up to a walking football group where they train and play a 5-a-side football. This is good for his mental well-being and his social side of his life. The session is an hour long, and I've made sure the session is later at night so that he's able to get back from work in time. This also helps to increase the muscles in the legs and the core. These sessions are on every other week and are really, really good for his mental well-being. The cool down. If possible, after the walking football, he could use a stationary bike or even to walk around after walking football to reduce the heart rate back down to its resting heart rate. It's important that this walk around after or jog after walking football is at a very low intensity, so it's a cool down rather than a warm up. We'll then move on to some dynamic stretches he can remember to do after the training. We can do some split lunges. We can do 3 sets of 5 reps, and then some high kicks across the body. So the right leg going to the left arm and the left leg going to the right arm. We'll finish with a foam roller at home. If he's able to stretch out any muscles that may be sore from walking football, or any muscles that he feels there might be a little niggle in them, the foam roller is really, really useful for this. Thursday is another rest day for my client. Too much exercise for somebody such as Paul it can cause tedium and can be really boring, especially with a full day's work in between each day, which can be stressful and not great for his mental well-being. Therefore, Thursday is a rest day. He's able to go to work and then come back, and I also advise that he does not run to work or work out at all. Just make sure that he rests his body. Friday again is another rest day. The sessions I've completed for Paul are quite strenuous, and so for lots of rest is important, so that the body does not fall short of its best ability. On Saturday, the activity is badminton with his badminton group, and so I've given Paul some exercises and some warm-up things he can do before the badminton session starts. We can have some static stretches. He can be shoulder width apart and reach far down to your feet as possible. He can do this around 3 times and should hold it for 10 seconds each time. He can then put his hands on his hips and rotate the hips in a circular motion. Do this for around 40 seconds. Make sure to stop at the back to stretch the hamstring muscles and stop at the front in the circular motion to stretch the hip flexors. He can then begin a pulse raiser. This could be a slight jog around the badminton hall, or it could be jumping jacks or bear crawls. These all increase heart rate, so the blood travelling to the muscles is oxygenated and warm, so the muscles are ready for exercise. The activity on Saturday is a badminton group. The session lasts an hour and a half and runs every other week. The session focuses on the technique of badminton shots, how to play the game with fun activities and competitive games for all skill levels. This helps with social skills and strengthens the core. This badminton group is really, really important to Paul's mental well-being and also his social aspect outside of work. Paul doesn't get a chance to be very social during the week, and so this badminton group can create new friendship groups, and also he can develop new skills that he might not have known he had, or he might enjoy the badminton itself for what it is. Sunday, another rest day for Paul. He has completed 3 sessions throughout this week, and it's only week 3. Therefore, it's important to give him rest days to make sure that the body is not getting too worked out and too hard on him. This day is also a test day, as we are at the end of week 3. Because it is at the end of the 3 weeks, we go back to the targets that me and Paul set at the start of the exercise program. The 3 weeks target was to build muscle mass across the whole body and to have a more defined and physical shape. We can test this through working out his lean body mass. This is everything in your body besides fat, bones, organs, muscle and water. We can test this through a lean body mass calculator. We'll have the results that we took at the start of the program, and we'll collect the result at the end of week 3. Week 4, Monday, the warm-up. To begin with, we'll have a light jog with the client following myself. When I shout 1, the client touches the floor with their right hand. When I shout 2, the client touches the floor with their left hand. When I shout 3, the client changes direction. We'll do this for around 2 minutes. Then we'll move on to some dynamic stretches. We'll start with some deep lunges with a rotation in between. We'll do 3 sets of 5 lunges and then some inchworms. Do 2 sets of 4 inchworms. The main activity is working out the biceps, gastrocnemius and the abdominals. We'll begin with a dumbbell curl. We'll do 3 sets of 18 reps at a 10 kilogram weight. And then a preacher curl, 3 sets of 18 reps at 7 kilograms. And then some gastrocnemius or calf raises, 4 sets of 20 reps. And obviously that's a body weight activity. And then some weighted crunches, 4 sets of 20 reps at a 5 kilogram weight. All of these activities here in the gym session are all very important to building muscle mass and also strengthening the body, which are both the targets of my client. The cool down, use the stationary bike to reduce the heart rate back down to its resting heart rate. Make sure you pedal at a low intensity so that it's a warm up, so it's not a warm up but rather a cool down. Then start some dynamic stretches. Do some split lunges we'll do 3 sets of 5 reps here. Then some high kicks across the body. Do 2 sets of 5 reps on both leg. We'll then finish with the foam roller to stretch out and roll any sore muscles. Paul also has a foam roller at home, so he can use this in his spare time to roll anything that he feels is sore. Tuesday is a rest day. My client has a stressful job up in London, and getting back for the gym sessions makes it even more stressful, especially when commuting. So this day is a rest day. I've suggested that on this day he focuses on stretching muscles that are sore. For example, after the bicep, gastrocnemius and abdominal session, he could stretch these muscles using resistance bands and a foam roller. Wednesday, another rest day. My client has a stressful job up in London. Getting back from gym sessions makes it even more stressful. I suggested that on this day he focuses on his nutrition, potentially making healthy foods that he can take to work that help build muscle. For example, after a gym session there'll be micro tears in the muscle, and eating foods that have high protein in will build the fibres stronger than they were before. Thursday, The warm-up. Start with some static stretches, shoulder width apart, and reach down as far down to your feet as possible. Do this 3 times and hold it for around 10 seconds each time. Then put your hands on your hips and rotate your hips in a circular motion. Do this for around 40 seconds and hold it at the back for the hamstring curl stretch and at the front for the hip flexor stretch. Then begin some jumping jacks. This increases the heart rate. Do this for around a minute and a half. Once the pulse raiser and static stretches are done, move on to some dynamic stretches before beginning your session. Start with some hamstring curls, do 5 reps with 2 sets and finish with some groin stretches. This could be opening gait, also do 5 reps with 2 sets. The activity on Thursday is training the chest and biceps, improving muscle mass and strengthening the muscles. First, we'll begin with a dumbbell press. This is 4 sets of 14 reps at 10 kilograms. And then a bench press, 4 sets of 14 reps at 25 kilograms. Tricep dips, 3 sets of 12 reps, and this is a body weight activity. And then tricep pulls, 3 sets of 14 reps at 10 kilograms. Friday, another rest day. Paul has been through 2 sessions already this week and has a 3rd one coming up. And I think for a person who doesn't partake in exercise normally, it can be quite difficult to get into the rhythm of and continue exercising. So that is why I have so many rest days for Paul. His body is probably taking his toll on his body right now, and he's really feeling it. So lots of rest, nutrition, fluids on board is all very important. Towards the end of the 6-week program, we can pick up the amount of sessions per week, but for now, another rest day for Paul. Saturday, we'll start with a light jog in the warm-up. When I shout 1, the client will touch the floor with their right hand. When I shout 2, the client touches the floor with their left hand. When I shout 3, the client changes direction. We'll do this activity for around 2 minutes. It's an easy pulse raiser for the client and myself. It gets us moving, it gets our hearts pumping the blood around the body to the muscles so they are ready for exercise. We can start move on to some dynamic stretches afterwards. We'll start with some lunges. We can do 2 sets of 3 lunges, and then we can do some inchworms, 2 sets of 4 worms, and we should be ready for exercise. The main activity here is a gym session, improving the shoulders and abdominals. The first exercise is a dumbbell shoulder press, 4 sets of 18 reps with a 5 kilogram weight. And then some lateral raises, 4 sets of 18 reps with a 5 kilogram weight. Some dumbbell shrugs, 4 sets of 18 reps with another 5 kilogram weight. These activities here in the gym session are really important to improve muscle mass, but more so to strengthen the muscles if done repeatedly and over time. If Paul is able to get to gym sessions without me, I've trained him to know what exercises to complete, and he can complete these over time to strengthen the muscles. The cool down, here we're just going to use the foam roller and the resistance bands, as well as the stationary bike to cool down properly. We can use the stationary bike to begin with to reduce the heart rate back down to its resting heart rate. We need to make sure that we're pedaling at a low intensity for this. We can then have the foam roller and resistance bands to really ensure that the muscles are stretched after such a strenuous activity of the gym session with the shoulders and abdomens. The foam rollers should be used to roll over anything that may have built up with lactic acid. This normally happens when training anaerobically, which we have done just previously. So using the foam roller can be really effective here. Moving on to Sunday. Sunday is another rest day. Paul starts his week back over on Monday, and therefore having a rest day on Sunday is quite good for him, as he is able to rest for his week ahead. He can also plan meal times that contain protein and healthier meals. Week 5, Monday, the warm-up. Start with some static stretches, shoulder width apart, reach as far down to your feet as possible. Do this 3 times and hold it for 10 seconds each stretch. Then, put your hands on your hips and rotate your hips in a circular motion. Do this for around 40 seconds. Then begin some jumping jacks. This increases heart rate, and do this for around a minute and a half. Once the pulse raiser and static stretches are done, move on to some dynamic stretches before beginning your session. Start with some hamstring curls. Do 5 reps with 2 sets and finish with some groin stretches. This could be opening and closing the gate. The activity here is body weight exercises. So we have sit-ups, 3 sets of 12 reps, press-ups, 3 sets of 12 reps, and a plank, 3 sets of 1 minute. These body weight exercises should be fairly simple for Paul now, as the strengthening and the building of muscle mass has built up over the past 4 weeks. To cool down, use the elliptical machine at a low intensity around level 4 for around 8 minutes. Then use some static stretches. For example, lay down on the floor with your arms extended to stretch the hip flexor. Hold this for 15 seconds. Then put your palms against the wall with one leg bent and the other extended to stretch the gastrocnemius muscle. Hold this for 15 seconds. Once the stretches are done, use the foam roller to stretch anything out that might be bothering you from the previous exercise. Tuesday, the warm-up. Start with a light jog following myself around the sports hall, and when I shout 1, the client should touch the floor with their right hand. When I shout 2, the client should touch the floor with their left hand. And when I shout 3, the client should change direction. We'll do this for around 2 minutes. Then we'll move on to some dynamic stretches. Start with some lunges. Do 3 sets of 5 lunges, then some inchworms. Do 4 sets of 4 inchworms. The activity here is circuit training with some body weight exercises. So at the first station we have squats, 3 sets of 12 reps, then some burpees, 3 sets of 12 reps, then some glute bridge with 3 sets and 15 reps, some straight leg calf raises, 4 sets of 12 reps, with a 45-second rest in between each exercise. To cool down, use the resistance bands and foam roller to roll out any muscles that will be sore from the training, and also stretch out anything that might be bothering you from previous training sessions. Wednesday is a rest day. Because of my client's stressful job up in London, it's difficult to get back for gym sessions. To begin this week, we've done a Monday and Tuesday gym session, and it will continue throughout the week. So to put less stress on my client, I've decided to give him a rest day. It also gives him a chance to stretch any muscles that may be sore, and also to rest the body from any sort of exercise at all. I've suggested that he takes his time with the stretching and also the walking football. He needs to be able to do this as well to be able to play in the games and compete with his team. So it's important that rest days occur throughout the week. Thursday, again, start with some static stretches. This could be standing on one leg with your right leg tucked behind you, and hold with your right arm and pull the stretch in. This stretches the hip flexor and also the top of the quadricep. Another static stretch, could be sat on the floor with your right leg over the other leg bent, and pull that in towards your chest. Hold these stretches for around 10 to 15 seconds for the maximum purpose. The activity on Thursday is the walking football. The client has joined up to walking football, where they train and play a 5-a-side football. This is good for his mental well-being and social side of his life, as he is able to communicate and make new friendships within the group. The session is an hour long, and I've made sure that the session is later at night, that's so he's able to get back from work in time. This also helps to increase the muscles in the legs and also the core. There is a session every other week. This is the last session of the training program, but I hope that Paul will continue this past the programme. To cool down after the walking football, he can use a light jog or even a walk around the area that he's just trained to make sure that the blood travelling to the muscles is oxygenated and therefore is able to push out any lactic acid from the body. Friday, another rest day for Paul. It's important that on these rest days he also thinks about his nutrition. Nutrition is for Paul could be about building the muscles, and so protein is really useful for this, as protein helps to rebuild the micro tears in the muscles, helps to rebuild them bigger and stronger. It's also important that on rest days that he makes sure that the fluids taken on board are good for the body. So, for example, the electrolytes, which could be stored in some energy drinks such as Lucozade, and also water. Water is really important for concentration, and the body needs water for its minerals and things like that. Saturday we'll start with a light jog following myself. When I shout 1, the client touches the floor with their right hand. When I shout 2, the client touches the floor with their left hand. And when I shout 3, the client changes direction. This exercise is one I've used throughout the exercise program, but today we're going to be doing it for a lot longer. We're going to be doing this for around 5 to 8 minutes. It's just a little bit longer today to increase the heart rate and get it going a bit more, as he should be fully equipped to this activity by now. We'll then move on to some static stretches, such as some lunges. We'll lunge, come back up to our standing position, and then lunge back down as well. We'll do 3 sets of 5 of these lunges, and we'll hold the lunges for a good 15 seconds. The activity here is the badminton group. This session lasts an hour and a half and runs every other week. This session focuses on the techniques of badminton shots, how to play the game with fun activities and competitive games for all skill levels. This helps with his social skills and strengthens the core, but it's really important that these types of sessions are good for Paul's mental well-being, as a stressful job can put you in a spiral where you're not being very social and your happiness and outgoingness is not personified. It's also helpful for these types of groups, as Paul might develop a like for the game and therefore play it more often, and it might be a gateway into him finding more opportunities to play sport. To finish the week, Sunday we have another rest day. The week after this is the final week of the training program, so it might be a good idea for Paul to recover and look forward to the rest of the week and find out what sort of things are working for him nutrition-wise, what sort of meals he's enjoying, what sort of meals he's preparing for his time at work. But Sunday is another rest day, and it's really important that Paul rests. Week 6, Monday. Monday is a rest day. I've understood that Paul needs time out of his job to rest and out of the gym sessions, so resting is really important. It also gives him a good way to look forward to the rest of the week. 6 days left of the 6-week program, with a testing day at the end. Tuesday's warm-up is some static stretches. To begin with, we can do some hamstring curls, stationary hamstring curls. We can lean down with our right foot with our heel to the ground and our toes up in the air, and reach down to pull on top of the toe, pull back on the toes. Another static stretch is when you push your feet wider than your shoulders, lean over to one side, bending one knee and extending the other. This creates a stretch down the groin. Once the stretches have been complete, we will then move on to a pulse raiser. The pulse raiser is jumping jacks intertwined with little sprints in between. So it should be about 5 jumping jacks with a little sprint to a 5-meter cone, and then walk back and then begin jumping jacks again. We'll do this around 3 times to really increase heart rate. It's important to increase the heart rate in the warm-up so that the blood going towards the muscles is warm, and therefore the muscles are warm and at less risk of injury. The activity here is a gym session improving the biceps, gastrocnemius and the abdominals. We start off with a barbell curl with 4 sets of 15 reps at a 10 kilogram weight, and then a bicep curl, 4 sets of 15 reps at 10 kilograms, and then a gastrocnemius press, 3 sets of 15 reps at 7 kilograms, and then some gastrocnemius raises, 4 sets of 15 reps, that's obviously a body weight exercise, and then some jackknife sit-ups, 3 sets of 10 reps, again a body weight exercise. We're in the last week of the 6-week program, and here it's all about strengthening the muscles that we've previously put on. So the muscle mass target has been reached, and we are increasing muscle mass already. We're now strengthening the muscles that we have just worked out and made bigger and stronger. Wednesday is a rest day, and so is Thursday, so you've got a 2-day gap now where we have a rest day for both. I think it's really important that on both of these rest days that time taken away from the job and also from the gym, focusing on what's really important to them and potentially setting new goals outside of this program. This could be their own personal goals or to continue what they've already been doing. The rest days should also be used for making meal plans and setting up meals and focusing on what you're actually eating. Sometimes it can be easy if you're in a office job and you don't get a lot of time out of the office. It's quite easy to eat things whilst you're not moving, and you're not very mobile throughout the day, so it doesn't actually help the body at all. Rest days are also obviously for resting, so hours of sleep. It's recommended around 8 to 10 hours of sleep for the average adult, and I think it's really important as this is when the muscles and also the body is when it's growing and when it's taking care of itself and resting basically. We'll then move straight on to Friday. To begin with, on Friday, we'll go straight into a pulse raiser. I'll be standing in front of my client around 5 meters away. On his right hand side there will be a cone 5 meters away. On his left hand side there will be another cone 5 meters away. When I shout right, he'll run to the right hand side cone, touch it and return back to the middle. When I shout left, he'll run to the left hand cone, touch it and then return back to the middle. When I shout up, he will jump up, and when I shout down, he will lay on the ground. This task is really easy and quite fun for both the client and also the personal trainer. It doesn't take long, but should be done for around 5 minutes to really increase the heart rate of the client. Then we move on to the activity. The activity is another gym session, working on the chest and biceps. Here we're trying to strengthen them now, so increasing the weight but also decreasing the sets and reps, so that it's about perfecting the lifting technique and finding what really works for you. So we begin with a dumbbell press. We have 4 sets of 16 reps at 15 kilogram weight. And a bench press, we've upped this, we've got 4 sets of 16 reps, we've upped it to 30 kilograms here. And then some tricep dips, 3 sets of 14 reps, and obviously that's a body weight exercise. Then some tricep pulls, 3 sets of 16 reps at 10 kilogram weights. To cool down here, use the resistance bands along with the personal trainer or even with yourself. Put the resistance bands underneath your feet and pull up with both your hands pulling up. This puts resistance on the muscle, but not so much as a weight does, so to avoid causing injury. The foam roller can also be used as this is really good for removing lactic acid out of the body, which builds up when working anaerobically like we have just previously done. Stretches in the arms can also be done. For example, there's 2 sets of tricep activities here. So stretching the tricep out can be really useful to reduce the risk of injury for the next day. Saturday, for this warm-up, we'll begin with a static stretch. We will have our feet shoulder width apart and reach down as far possible to your feet. Do this at least 3 times and hold it for around 10 seconds. Then place your hands on your hips, rotate your hips in a circular motion, and do this for around 40 seconds. This loosens up the hips and also loosens up the muscles leading to the legs. Then begin some jumping jacks. This increases the heart rate. Do this for around 1.5 minutes and can also be intertwined with some sprints in between. So for example, we could have 5 jumping jacks with a sprint in between every 5. Once the pulse raiser and static stretches are done, move on to some dynamic stretches before beginning your session. Start with some hamstring curls, do 5 reps with 2 sets, and finish with some groin stretches, opening and closing the gate. With the dynamic stretches, it's important to keep moving throughout the stretch, as this starts to replicate what you might be doing in an activity. For this activity, it's going to be some body weight training in the form of circuit training. So to begin with, we'll have squats. We'll have 3 sets of 15 reps, and then some burpees, 3 sets of 15 reps. The glute bridge, 3 sets of 18 reps. Straight leg calf raises, 4 sets of 15 reps, with 45 seconds rest in between each exercise. These exercises all exercise muscles that have been worked on previously, and it shouldn't be too difficult here, as they are body weight training, and Paul should be used to this type of resistance on his muscles by now. To cool down, we will use the elliptical machine at a low intensity at around level 4 for around 8 minutes. We'll then use some static stretches, for example, standing with your hands pointing all the way up and on your tiptoes. This stretches out the abdominals that may have just been used, and also the hip flexor. Another stretch you can do is pushing your palms up against the wall with one leg extended and another bent. This can stretch all of the gastrocnemius and the lower part of the hamstring. These stretches should be held for at least 15 seconds for the correct purpose of the stretch. Once the stretches are done, again, use the foam roller to stretch anything that may be bothering you. The foam roller is really useful for removing any lactic acid that would have built up throughout the training. Finally, on to Sunday. On Sunday, we will be testing. We will not be doing an activity, but we'll be testing the client to see how far they've come and the results, and the difference between the results at the start of the program towards the end of the 6-week program. So the long-term goal for Paul at the end of the 6 weeks was to have a more strengthened body. So we've built the muscle mass in week 3, and at the end of week 6, it was all about strengthening the muscles that we've previously built. And to test the strength throughout the body, there are various tests, and I've chosen 3 that I think cover most of the body, or a majority of the body. To begin with, we have the 3-minute push-up test. This focuses on the abdominals and most of the arm muscles, the bicep, tricep and forearm, which have been previously worked out. And then deadlift test. This tests the legs, upper and body of the legs. And finally, The squat test. This again tests the legs and the lower leg and the upper leg as well. It's really important to test the client after you've done this. After you finish the 6-week program, it's both satisfying for the client and also the personal trainer when improvements have been made. Alternatives to a session plan. For example, if the gym was not available for one of my session plans, I could easily use bodyweight exercises to create the same effect. Although the bodyweight exercises are similar to the weight training plans, they can't help progress the client's muscle mass, but they can replicate similar effects on the body for one session if worked properly by myself.